That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
You make.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 21st of April, meeting of the zoning board of appeals, the town of Austining. My name is Sal Carrera, chairman, and joining me this evening are members of the zoning board of appeals, town attorney, building inspector, and secretaries. Please introduce yourselves for
Lynn
the record.
Farrell, member.
David Krieger, member.
David O'Neill, member.
Tom Wills, member.
Randy Anelli, secretary.
John Turnquist, building inspector.
Christy Adana, attorney.
We have two hearings this evening. I will read the public notice and then request the applicant or their representatives to give a brief explanation of the relief sought. Anyone that has a comment should raise their hand and state their name and address. After the comments are received, the board will try to render a decision this evening. For the record, this evening, we have two applications under our special permit code for the zoning board of appeals. This is not like our use variances or any others that come in front of us. So just a brief special permits and what this board should take into consideration after hearing the applicants. In addition to such powers as may be conferred on it by statute, the Board of Appeals shall have the power and public notice and hearing on an application to issue special permits for any of the uses specified in the use regulations of Article 3 as required. Such permits in the particular district, except for special permits required to be issued by a town board pursuant to Article 3, 200-17D. Here. In issuing such a permit, the Board of Appeals, that's us, shall take into consideration the public health, safety, and welfare, and the comfort and convenience of the public in general, and of the residents in the immediate neighborhood in particular, and may prescribe such appropriate conditions and safeguards as may be required in order that the result of such action, to the maximum extent possible, further the express intent of this chapter and the accomplishments of both objectives. The first one this evening will be Amy and Mark Seiden, the public notice. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing, the Town of Austining zoning board of appeals, will be held on Monday, April 21st, 2025, at 7:30 p.m. at John Paul Rodriguez Operations Center, 101 Route 9A, Austining, New York, 10562. On the application of Amy and Mark Seiden, the meeting will be held in person and by Zoom video conferencing using the following link. The property is located at 49 Croton Dam Road, owned by Amy and Mark Seiden, in the unincorporated area of the Town of Austining, identified on the tax map of the Town of Austining, section 89.09, block 1, lot 79 in the R15 one-family resident zone. The applicant is seeking a special permit in the terms of the zoning code of the Town of Austining, chapter 200-26A2, animals. In any resident district, the following animals may be harbored, kept, and/or raised for the sole benefit and use of the occupants of the principal dwelling only as an accessory use to a principal use. Dogs, cats, and similar small animals usually maintained as household pets within the principal dwelling, and rabbits, poultry, and similar domestic animals occasionally maintained as pets, but usually maintained outside of a residence as a farm animal, providing there shall be a maximum of 4 such animals over the age of 6 months on lots of a quarter acre or more, and a maximum of 2 such animals over the age of 6 months on less than a quarter acre. Paragraph 2, on parcels of 2 acres or more by special permit issued by the zoning board of appeals in accordance with Article 9. More than 4 dogs, cats, rabbits, poultry, and any other similar animals over the age of 6 months, and provided the number thereof shall not exceed following per acre, and any combination thereof 1 horse, 1 cow, 1 steer, or 6 sheep. The applicants are proposing to add a chicken coop with an enclosed run for 15 chickens and 2 roosters on a parcel of land that is approximately 2.19 acres in size. Application material and plans dated March 20th, 2025, prepared by Mark Seiden, are available at the Town of Ossining Building Department. All interested persons are invited to attend the public hearing to be heard on this matter. The public can send written comments to the Building Department, townofaustining.com, or regular mail to the Town Ossining Zoning Board of Appeals, Post Office Box 1166, Ossining, New York 10562. Please feel free to contact our office by phone if you need additional information regarding the Zoning Board of Appeals process. By order of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Sal Carrera, Chairman. Okay. With regard to this application, we've had one email from a neighbor, Andrew Hazen, that says, "My name is Andrew Hazen, and I am the owner of the property located at 66 Hawks Avenue. The rear yard of my property abuts the rear yard of the Seiden property, where he intends to install a chicken coop. I am concerned that due to the close proximity of the coop's placement and my residence being downhill from said coop, there may be additional drainage issues, odors, and may attract rodents. Mr. Seiden is also proposing up to 2 roosters if allowed. I strongly object to having any roosters due to the noise. Thank you, Andrew Hazen." Okay, Mr. Seiden, can you give us a brief explanation other than what I just read of what you're trying to do at your piece of property?
I think you said it very well. We're looking to actually do a full enclosure, almost like the garden enclosure that I have with my raised beds. So it's going to be enclosed on all sides, including the top, 10 by 13. And within that would be the chicken coop. And we're just looking to get a bunch of chickens so we can get a bunch of eggs. The reason for the roosters, and I'm kind of flexible on the roosters, is that they do keep away hawks and eagles and so on and so forth. So with all the research that I did, they really just have no fear. So it was just really as a preventative to get keep my chickens from being plucked by animals. But I think I'm pretty much going to have that covered just on the enclosure that they're going to be in. There's not going to be any drainage issues or water issues, or I'm not adding anything like that. There's no fountains. There's no watering. There's nothing like that. It's just a chicken coop with a chicken run.
Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
The reason for having chickens?
Why not? They look a lot of fun. They're really cool pets. They give a lot of really great fresh eggs. It's not just because eggs are expensive, but I don't know if you've ever had any fresh eggs that are 1 or 2 days old versus what you get in the grocery store, but it's like eating prime beef versus chuck. It's just so much better.
Do you have any experience, you and your wife, with regards to having a chicken coop and having the number of chickens that you're proposing and the roosters?
No, but we're going in with a friend of mine. There's a friend of mine who lives, gosh, I don't even know if she's even a half a mile away from me, but she's in the village of Ossining. And she's going to be doing it with us. And she's had chickens for more than years, more than a decade and stuff. So she's kind of like someone who's going to be doing it with me.
Okay, and your comment with regards to the roosters, I mean, there are other benefits of having a rooster there besides deterring other animals. And having 2 roosters and 15 chickens there, the roosters basically can impregnate every one of these 15 chickens, and those 15 chickens could have dozens of hens coming out during that whole period of time. How are you prepared to handle something like that?
Yeah, I mean, after I put in the application, to be honest with you, I don't really, I think after I put the application, but then was really thinking about the enclosure, I don't mind even giving up the roosters, because I don't think I'm gonna have the issue of poaching, and I'm really not looking to raise chicks. That is beyond far from what I want to do. I just want eggs. Plus, the chickens are a lot of fun. They chase you around. They're actually pretty fun. I don't know if you've ever done anything with chickens before, but they're kind of a blast.
Well, they also are very smelly and dirty to the area, after doing a lot of research on this myself, besides the other board members. And what programs do you have in place for, any type of abatement of, waste from the chickens?
It's going to be cleaned out often. My gardener is going to be helping me with the clean out on that. So my gardener works with me 12 months a year because he's also helps me with some snow removal and things like that.
This is a daily, this is not, once a week where they come and mow the lawn, or when there's you're saying, you're shaking your head, Jess, that it's done how often, cleaning a coop and cleaning the area that you're gonna have screened in?
Well, it's kind of like having a cat, right? So like we have an automatic litter box in a cat. Like it's not like a regular litter box. So we're gonna have a lot of automation in there. So there'll be some things that are done, every other day, just kind of wipe things down. But when you're talking about, let's say, raking out, everything within the chicken coop, no one does that more than really once a week. I mean, I've read a lot of things. Sometimes they don't even do it once every 2 weeks, but we're planning on doing that quite often. We're not looking to do anything that's smelly or nasty or gross, because whether someone lives down from me, to the side of me, or my property, that smell goes by wind. That smell doesn't go by topography. So I'm not looking to have a smelly property for myself. So there's no way I'm going to let that be disgusting.
Okay, and how prepared are you for the possibility of, similar to a bird flu that, we just experienced throughout the country, and that's why eggs are so expensive today?
All right.
What would happen in a case like that?
We'd have to destroy them. I mean, immediately.
So the application calls for the chickens and the roosters, so that's the application that we're considering now, not that it could be chickens and no roosters. So you gotta tell me basically, or tell this board, am I gonna go by the number of chickens and the 2 roosters that you're putting in front of us today?
Well, it even says on the application, I don't really have mine in front of me, but even the roosters, how I even wrote it on the application is the roosters were almost, I didn't use the word optional, but almost like additional. So I can officially state I'm willing to say bye-bye to the roosters and just ask for 15 chickens.
Okay, so understand, with this board is that this is, again, a special permit. This is, nothing like we've had in the past with regards to, use of area variances. And since this is 2 acres, and they're asking for more than 4 chickens, that's where the special permit comes into play. So I may have more questions as we go along, but I will leave it up to some of the other board members to
Yeah, so I
continue asking.
The roosters are off the table. I don't have any further questions about that. I did have a question about how you arrived at the 15 chickens. Is that a function of the size of the hen house, or is it some other calculation?
Yeah, the hen house can hold up to 20, but so I just picked 15. I can't tell you there was any other magic kind of reason for the number. We do go through a lot of eggs here. It's actually kind of a really cool gift to give people also when you give them some fresh eggs. So it's either giving them fresh eggs or I have to keep buying wine at the liquor store. So I think it'd be a lot more fun giving someone, half a dozen eggs as a gift. But mostly it's really for us and our consumption and our amusement to have more pets to chickens because they are a blast. Once the chickens really get to know you, they follow you around, which to me would just pretty much be in the pen, the 10 by 13 pen. But they run around and they like you, and you sit down and you can pet them, and they're pretty pseudo intelligent and like humans and like to be around humans, and they're a blast. Amy, my wife, used to take care of my friends' chickens who live in the village all the time when they went on vacations and stuff, and it was just a lot of fun just kind of hanging out with them. And it's just like having cats and dogs. They can become very personable.
How would you check for bird flu? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have to read up on it. I mean, whatever I need to do, I can't tell you off the top of my head that I know, but once it gets approved, if it gets approved, I mean, I would do that. I mean, I know I can do 4 chickens without even seeing you guys, so that would be the same kind of question. Even if I just went in for 4 chickens, like what would I do if the bird flu? I got to learn a little bit more about it, and as soon as there's any signs of it, they get destroyed very quickly because that's not something we can
Problem
do.
with the bird flu, or any other disease,
Mhm.
even though it's all fenced in and you have a chicken coop, is that, other animals can get in, other birds can get in. The bird flu is easily spread to animals, and then those animals fly off and go someplace else and spread it to wherever they are. So that's a major problem as far as I am concerned in a residential area, other than having it, in a poultry farm someplace. So it's not just that it's great to have as, pets and feeding them. There was a quote basically after doing all of my research, and this is from a farm sanctuary, that, having chickens is not as easy as just feeding them and picking up the eggs.
Correct.
They're very smelly and dirty. And I have a, concern with regards to the number of chickens in a residential area, with regards to, what 15 chickens can bring. The other question I have for our town attorney is that, is it as of right, you're allowed 4, or as soon as you hit 2 acres, you have to still have a special permit, no matter how many?
So the way the code reads, you can have, because the applicant has 2 acres, a little over 2 acres, 2.19. They can have, it says dogs, cats, and other similar animals usually maintain this house full of pets, including poultry. Provided that there shall be a maximum of 4 such animals over the age of 6 months on lots of 1/4 acre or more, and a maximum of 2 such animals over the age of 6 months on lots of 1/4 acre or less. So the applicant is correct that as of right, he could have 4 chickens and just go to the building department, and that would be it.
Then you would not need a special permit for that.
That is correct, but then there's subsection 2, which says on parcels of 2 acres or more, it does give people the opportunity when they're on larger lots to potentially have more, but there's no similar limitation in terms of size. It's completely at the discretion of this board as to how many you find to be appropriate based upon the circumstances. Based with, the applicant has made some representations tonight about the pen that it's going to be in. Obviously, there are concerns about how they're going to be confined and if disease is potentially transmittable. It may be helpful to this board if the applicant were willing to submit a plan as to how maintenance is going to occur and as to what the design of the pen is going to be. Because that's really how you can determine whether it's appropriate to grant the special permit. However, I will say that, that's going to ultimately be challenging because ultimately someone's going to have to be looking into that and enforcing it.
which we don't have in this town. It's something up for the building inspector to take care of, the problems that, construction related, other than with chickens and roosters and horses and stuff.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I raised chickens in Maine for 20 years. And I think I know a little bit about chickens, and my kids certainly let me know the work it took to keep the pens clean and keep the critters away. And it's a significant maintenance. It's not just that you put it up, you've got to keep the fence up. The manure, or whatever you want to call it, is great for the garden, but you gotta have a good garden, you gotta know how to deal with it, and it is a maintenance problem. Again, just like last time we got together, I'm very much moved by the neighbors' concerns also. The pen is particularly close to the person who was sent the letter. And that just makes me really concerned, particularly when you have such a good sized piece of property that it sits in a corner about as close to that neighbor as you could possibly get. So that doesn't sit well with me, as I guess I could say I'm a farmer from Maine. That's really all. I don't have a question. I may lean, the number.
Good enough. Your statement was,
Yeah, the number concerns me, and I'm glad the board is at least considering no roosters, because that's really complicates the issue a lot, even though it's not mentioned in the.
No,
Really?
but
it's on the poultry. It's on the poultry. I asked the same question.
Yeah.
It's not specific with roosters, and
Yeah,
our esteemed attorney here said it's poultry, so I had to say, yep.
yeah.
so that's the case in terms of it being able to be entertained by this board, right? But as the chairman mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, there's still criteria as far as the special permit and the impacts that could potentially result from having it, that you are entitled to and required to consider before you may entertain granting such an application. And so having roosters obviously creates its own separate potential impact, separate and apart from chickens.
So point of clarification, we are voting on chicken only.
Right, we're gonna take the applicant's concession, no roosters, but 15 chickens. Okay, so we all understand each other. I'll open it up to the public. Anybody here? With regards to this application? Yes, sir, your name?
Howard
Address?
Drescher. I live at 22 Tavana Road. And I've also been involved in raising chickens. I have some experience. My family had a property up in the Catskills. And we had chickens, ducks, sheep, horses, you name it, goats and what have you. My question to the applicant is, when it comes to winter, these chickens need to be in a place where it's warm, and the structure that I assume that there's a building that you're going to be a chicken coop that's going to be housing the chickens. And I think that I know that what we bought was actually a chicken farm upstate New York. And so there was lots of these lamps that would have to be, out there in the barn, heating up the chickens. And I think that is also something that should be taken into consideration, the exposure of the electricity, the wires. If something could cause a fire. And, this is a first time experience. I know for you, Mark. You sometimes learn as you go through it. So I just would like to know if you consider that and what you can share with us as to your thoughts.
Sure. A couple of things on that. One is the heat that we're looking to put in is more like radiant heat. It's almost like, if I made almost like radiant rock. So I'm not looking to put up like these heaters that glow red and everything like that within the coop. There's a big difference between having heat in a coop versus in a small barn or something like that. So it'll also all be professionally with electrical permits to have the outside electricity to the coop. So I'm planning on doing everything with permit when it comes to electricity. But these are all more going to be like radiant heat, which from everything that I read, and also from my friend who lives in the village, that's the proper way to really heat chickens in I'm calling it a small chicken coop. The reason why I call it small, even though for you on the board may think it's big because you're going from 0 to 15, but for those places that had farms or very large areas where they had hundreds and hundreds of chickens, having a chicken coop with 15 chickens is quite small. And you use those kind of radiant, almost like rock type heat for the winter. The other thing that I just would like to mention based on what was said before is there's actually no code that even requires that I even create an enclosure and for the chickens, and that's something that I just volunteered that I was going to do. I did put with the packet the plans from Dave's Fences, who builds. Actually, he even built my garden that I've had for years, a totally enclosed garden on all sides. He goes down, I don't know if it's a foot or 18 inches under the ground. I've never had a squirrel, chipmunk, bird. The only thing that ever got in my garden that I have since Dave's Fences built that was a snake, because the snake was small enough to get through, the little fence squares. But other than that, from the years that I've had that garden from him, we've been fox free, squirrel free, bird free for I don't know, 4 years, 5 years since I've had that garden. And Dave's Fences, when I spoke to Dave, he said, yeah, when they do the chicken coops, the mesh for the wire is actually even smaller holes than you even do for the garden. So he was pretty experienced on doing things. And this is going to be kind of Fort Knox-ish, where it's not just me and a couple of friends putting them up. This is from a professional person who does these enclosures all the time. And I did enclose his information with the packet. And that's not even required to get chickens. So I'm attempting to go all out to do a lot more than what I could just do with 4. Because again, if I just wanted 4 chickens, I wouldn't have to do an enclosure. Of course, you would do a coop, but there are no regulations at all with 4 chickens. And I could just have them roaming free and doing whatever they want anywhere. I'm attempting to show good faith to show they're going to be limited to a 230 square foot area. Unless a door gets left open, they're never going anywhere. As far as cleaning is concerned, I'm going to clean. My friend's going to clean. Above and beyond that, I have my landscaper who's going to help clean. They are not going to be smelly at all. They're smelly if they're left and left and left. But I personally am not interested in having a smelly property for myself, let alone any of my neighbors. So even though that's on the bottom of my property, that chicken coop from that location to the back door of my patio is closer to where that chicken coop is to my rear neighbor's house. So if it's going to smell from my rear neighbor, it's really going to smell on my house. And if anybody's ever been to my house, that ain't happening. So I understand the rear neighbor's concern, but my patio in my house is closer to that chicken coop than he is. And I'm going way above regulations by putting in a pen, by putting in an oversized coop, and by having other people help maintain this above and beyond what anybody else ever does.
I just want to be clear that the reason that that's necessary is because you need a special permit, because you're going above what is permitted as of right. So, and the chairman at the beginning of the meeting talked about the types of factors that the board has to consider: the public health, safety, and welfare, and the comfort and convenience of the public in general, and the residents of the immediate neighborhood in particular. So I understand what you're saying, but I just want to make very clear that while you're doing this, and while it may contribute to your application, and if you want to have 4 chickens, you're right, you can have 4 chickens as of right. But if you want to have more than 4 chickens, you have to demonstrate to this board that those standards are being satisfied.
I understand, and that's what I attempted to put in the application without, having to go back and can you get this and can you get that? That's exactly what I've already presented in there.
But there's no plan about maintenance, right?
The maintenance is based on, I'm not even too sure how to answer that question. If it has to be maintained every day, we maintain every day. I mean, it's the same thing with having dogs and cats. So it depends on what kind of mechanical systems one puts in there. So if you just get a regular litter box for a cat, really, if you don't want your litter box to smell, I hope you clean out your litter box every day. If you,
Yeah,
But those are-
that's
those are indoor.
indoors.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't say anything when it comes to indoor, how you wanna live, and I know you live extremely well, that's indoor.
Right.
You're talking about chickens on the outdoor, you're saying to us is that you, your wife, your landscaper, your friends from the village of Ossining, they're all gonna be contributing to cleaning up. That sounds great, okay, but the building inspector doesn't have the time to go check on this on a daily basis. And you're 100% correct, is that, if there's gonna be any smell, and there's gonna be a smell, okay, no matter how clean you are. This is in a residential area, it's not upstate on a farm. This is a residential area, and that's why this is in front of us for a special permit. So I understand everything that you're saying with regards to this. And like I've said before, I spent, since this application came in with the others, with regards to chickens, I'm not a chicken farmer, but I know what goes on at chicken farms at this stage of the game, besides having it in a residential piece of property. That being said, any other comments from the audience here? Okay, anything from Zoom?
I do have one other question. Is there a different number between 4 and 15 that the board would find more appealing?
At this stage of the game, this application is for 15 and 2 roosters. You took 2 roosters off, so we're not even considering that.
Right?
And I think this board will make a decision on the 15 versus what we do not have to give a special permit for, and that'd be 4. So that's what's in front of us today. And and to be honest with you, as far as I'm concerned, I'm only one vote. Is that whether it's 4, 6, 8, 10, 15, or 20 that you fit into your chicken coop, it's every other part of the special permit in a residential area that I have to take into consideration and making a decision for the, unincorporated town of Ossining. That's what we do. So, if there's no other comments from the audience and from Zoom, can I have a motion to close the public?
I make a motion to close the
Second.
hearing.
Okay, the public is finished, and the letter from the neighbor is on file. Okay. So I would ask my board members here on the application that's in front of us, with the roosters withdrawn for a special permit for 15 chickens on this site, how would you vote?
No,
No.
No.
No,
No,
All right, so let the record show that it's unanimous that the special permit is not granted for the 15 chickens. But as of right, he's allowed to have 4 and with no special permit, and that's something you can take into consideration and do it without any problem whatsoever, other than from, doing more than 4. Okay. Any other? That's it.
No.
Okay, this hearing is closed for this. Second one. This evening. Public notice. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the Town of Ossining Zoning Board of Appeals will be held on Monday, April 21st, 2025 at 7:30 PM on the John Paul Rodriguez Operations Center, 101, Route 9A, Ossining, New York, 10562. On the application of Karina Ortez and Bobala Delgado, the meeting will be held in person and by Zoom video conference. The property is located at 90 Stony Town Road, owned by Karina Ortez in the unincorporated area of the town of Ossining, identified on the tax map of the town of Ossining, section 90.11, block 1, lot 12, in the R41 family resident zoning district. The applicant is seeking a special permit from the terms of the zoning code of the town of Ossining, chapter 200-26A2, animals. Any resident district, the following animals may be harbored, kept, and or raised for the sole benefit and use of the occupants of the principal dwelling only as an accessory use to principal use. Dogs, cats, similar animals usually maintained as household pets within the principal dwelling, and rabbits, poultry, and similar small domestic animals occasionally maintained as pets, but usually maintained outside of a residence as a farm animal, provided that there shall be a maximum of 4 such animals of the age of 6 months on lots of a quarter acre or more, and a maximum of 2 such animals of the age of 6 months or less than a quarter of an acre. On parcels of 2 acres or more by special permit issued by the zoning board of appeals in accordance with provision Article 9. More than 4 dogs, cats, rabbits, poultry, and other similar animals over the age of 6 months, and provided that the number thereof shall not exceed the following per acre in any combination thereof: 1 horse, 1 cow, 1 steer, or 6 sheep. The applicants are proposing a horse corral for 2 horses, shed for a chicken coop for 12 chickens on a parcel of land that is approximately 9.68 acres in size. Application materials by Corona Ortez and a survey dated April 5th, 2025 by Ward Carpenter Engineers are available. All interested persons are invited to attend the public hearing to be heard on this matter. The public can send written comments by mail to the building department of the town of Ossining. Town of Ossining zoning board of appeals, Post Box 1166, Ossining, New York, 10562. Please feel free to contact our office by phone if you need any additional information regarding the zoning board process. By order of the zoning board of appeals, Sal Corriva Chairman, dated April 11, 2025. So may I have a representative for the owners or the owner himself or herself to give an explanation of what you're here for, and then we'll get into the questions that we have, and we'll go from there.
Stands.
Please, and give us your name and address.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Carlos Ture, 90 Summerstown Road here in Austin, New York. My parents, Corina and Bolívar, have the 2 horses, the 12 chickens, and they put in for the corral away from the property. Not really sure the size would be for it, but you know, if it, seeing how it was speaking, maintenance is something that's taken seriously. They have people that work at the property that if you need a schedule from them, because they built us, so you know, you'll have proof that we're maintaining it to keep it clean. It's ponies too, so they're small animals. Don't even need as much as we thought they would. And the enclosed corral will just be closed. The animals won't be roaming around. The chicken coop will also have the area where the chickens would have be netted, so they don't really fly around anymore. And
Okay,
if there are any questions, we'll
Yep,
be
a
answering
number
them.
of questions.
Yes,
So basically, how many chickens do you have right now?
12,
And how many roosters?
1, a mini rooster,
How many horses?
2 ponies.
Okay, so you already have chickens on the site.
Yes.
You already have two ponies on the site. That's all illegal, and that's one of the reasons why you're here. Is that, you know, as you have learned, you need a special permit to have animals, as you just heard,
Yes.
on a residential piece of property. Yeah, I've been to the site, I walked the site, okay? I understand what you're trying to do, but, you know, this is like two wrongs not making a right. You are already in violation of our zoning code by having these animals there. It's been brought to our attention, and that's one of the reasons why you're here. Besides that, you have other violations that my understanding is, with regards to the piece of property of cutting down trees.
Yes,
A violation has been.
he has filed for a tree, permit. He is, filed a planting plan to replant trees on the property line. They do have a permit to alter the house and make repairs to the house. There's no addition. It's all repair work on the house, so they do have permits for that. That's where we're at.
So when I was there, and like I said, I walked the whole site. There were, in the very beginning, that the chicken coop and or corral were gonna be put in a different location on that piece of property, since I saw posts being cemented in a different area on their site. Those posts are still for fencing? Or is that going to be taken out because they are relocating the corral and the chicken coops to the back of their piece of property that we walked, the way you showed me? Is that correct?
Those will be taken out.
That's correct. You told me they're moving it to the back.
Okay, so. And how many acres in that back that you showed me encompasses the area where you would put the corral and the chicken coop? Approximately.
About 4.5, I think. 4.5 to 5.
Yeah, that looks like about right on this map.
Okay, thank you. And the questions I have also, as we had with the prior applicant, okay, is that, number one, is that you're already in violation. So for the record here, is that, you know, other than having these chicken, roosters and ponies, you know, and they're not really confined because they can go all over the piece of property. And if you did get permission to build a corral and build a chicken coop in the back of the property on 4.5 acres, it's nowhere near the neighbors. But, you know, the question I have is, you know, what experience do you or any of your workers have with regards to this? You know, are you prepared for, God forbid, a bird flu that, you know, if it would strike any one of your animals right now, and other than, you know, killing them, you know, they're in the wide open spaces right now while I was there walking the site. So, you know, what type of experience do you have in stuff like this, other than feeding them and getting the eggs, besides having the ponies for your children or whatever?
The place for the chicken feed is, they're also like a community there too, right here in Compound Road in Northtown. And if there's things like bird flu going around, you know, it's part of a group that would tell us symptoms or, you know, this is happening, keep an eye on the animals. And yes, ultimately, we'd have to destroy them if they became sick.
I mean, part of the current problem, since they're running wild now, okay,
Yes.
and without, in the future, if the board so graciously approves this, is that they would be confined in a specific area. Is that, like I said to the last applicant, is that bird flu, okay, is transmitted to any and all animals, especially other birds. And once they get into that area and they eat any of the feed that's there, or they commingle with other animals that are there, and then they fly off, that causes the spread. This is almost like having, you know, a COVID-19 again, but with chickens. So I have a real problem with all of that. And the second problem I have under a special permit is that we always go back to, you know, the neighborhood and all the complaints that have come in, and I will go through a majority of it besides giving the people the opportunity to speak here, is that, you know, this is after the fact. This here was caught, I don't know how, could have been by a complaint, but it's coming in after the fact and the horses still there, ponies, the rooster's still there, the chickens are still there. I have no plans in front of me other than where you want to put this chicken coop and where you want to put this corral for the ponies. No architectural plans whatsoever, what they may and may not look like. And it's hard for us, especially for me, and I'm in the real estate business, is that it's hard for me to configure what it's going to all look like when currently you have nothing and they're running wild. So, you know, for the neighborhood, for the neighbors, the health, safety, and well-being of all the properties in and around your home, okay, all at risk, because this is something you just did. And now you're in front of us asking, you know, permission to continue doing this, but in a different sense with hopefully the chicken coop and hopefully a corral for the ponies where they would be in a specific area. And I can understand all of the letters that I've received. And I want to thank anybody and everybody that sent in all of their comments, which I took very seriously. I spent a huge amount of my time investigating all of this, and I really do appreciate the input. I take this very seriously in making decisions here, and I care about, you know, this town of Ossining that I've lived in for 60 some odd years. And this is a serious problem that we have in front of this board now of trying to remedy or fix a violation, just like cutting down the trees. Cutting down the trees and then going for a permit to cut down the trees. So you pay a fine. That doesn't do anything for the trees that are cut down, or for erosion that it may, you know, cause in the future. I do have to say that as compared to where all of the posts were being put in of the intent of the corral and of the chicken coop is completely different now on the plan that you showed me and where I walked, so that it doesn't really affect that many of the residents in and around that area. Part of the problem, as the previous, is that, you know, chickens and especially horse manure and chicken manure and urine, it all smells. And not to have a plan in place that we can't monitor is a real problem. We do not have the means to make sure that every animal has all inoculations, if there are such things for horses and ponies and chickens. There's nobody here to check any of that. That's why it's very difficult to get a special permit for animals. You're allowed 4, because, you know, how much damage could, you know, 4 chickens do other than laying an egg? But when you have a rooster, those 4 chickens can produce nothing but hens and no eggs. And those 4 chickens can go to 20 or 30 chickens in a month or so. Or your 12 or 13 can go to 50 or 100 with a rooster. And with all due respect, I had to look into the sex life of roosters, and they're very active. So it is, this is a real tough, okay, decision on our part for a special permit. Number one, to think about giving you something that you're already in violation of and have no experience in doing, other than saying, you know, the staff is going to take care of it. There's no plans in effect. There's nothing there. You know, This is not like Dr. Pole where you call him and he comes over and he takes care of your horse or chicken. So you know, these are my concerns: waste management, air quality, cleaning of the horse manure, storm water, okay? Bedding that has to be taken out with the hay. This is a business. This is not just for recreational use of having a couple of eggs and having your kids around a pony. That's my personal opinion. And what I try to do for this board is, you know, open it up for discussions so that everybody can ask their own particular questions and get information back from you so that we make an educated, you know, decision. So that being said, from my end, I'd like to, you know, ask the rest of the board members, and then we'll open it up
Let me see what-
to some of the letters that we received from the neighbors.
Sal,
Yes.
We've lived here 30 years. This is maybe the first year living in a property this size. And we weren't aware of the violations until they were violations, and, apologize for that. And we've taken steps, you tell us what to do, we're doing it, it's already a violation bringing this application, but we're here with the application. If you tell us, take these steps, we will take these steps. We're taking any steps given to us for our maintenance plan. What we can do is, if you need us to write a report or something, if that's part of, how when you at work, we always sign a sheet and we've done this and we've done that, and if we have to do that, and obviously you'll see if you can't always come see, but if it's a surprise and you come see and you can tell if we're maintaining, if we're not, and yes, with the size of the property, we never thought we'd have it. And so, you want to make it yours, and all the work that's being done to it already, might as well do other work on it too. Apologies for the trees that we take it down because you need a permit, we're sorry about that. And there's another tree, some dead trees, and we haven't taken those down because we gotta do permits for those too. But right now with this, the applications here, if there's any steps we have to take for approval, we'll take those steps. We've invested into it, and we're not really gonna stop investing into it. Just at the moment if you say yes, it'll just keep continuing it's gonna continue as a part of our life. Because my mother looks young, but I'm 40 years old, and we're siblings probably to you in your eyes. But somehow you get to that age or close to retirement, and the animals are more of a service animal to you, because it's more to do. Yeah. And as the gentleman before us said, it's true that somehow they're pets, they're loving animals, and that's why admitting violation, because we want to keep them. We hate to see them go. For their health, I don't know. The feed store, we can always ask the feed store. It's because there's always somebody who will, can do a visit, so maybe a health maintenance, or there's always a service that can do that. And if we have to make a contract with them to present to the board, we can do that.
I appreciate that input. I'm gonna open it up to the board to ask any comments that they have, and then, we'll go back to some of the correspondence that we received. I appreciate your input with regards to trying to fix something that is definitely broken. And as compared to the last applicant, this is, close to 10 acres, it's not 2 acres. So there is a difference there, but special permit, still has guidelines that we have to follow. So, let me open it up to the board.
I have
and
a
then-
question for Christie. There's one, was this application the one that's also planning, with planning?
No, that's 94, that's next door. I think the applicants for that application are actually on Zoom.
Okay.
Okay,
We're here.
Yeah, I did have some comments and concerns. I think getting a better understanding of what's meant by a horse barn, because I can visualize in my head, one thing could be something that's a small garage, it could be something that's 10 times as big, and it's not reflected on the site plan. The proposed shed and chicken coop are identified next to the corral, but I don't see any reference to the horse barn.
Well, am I to understand that as of right, you can have a 1 horse and the 4 chickens and this property as a starter, 50?
I know that's directed to me, I just need to pull the provision.
And the rest would be a special permit.
So as of, there's no as of right for horses.
Say that again, please.
There's no as of right for horses. Dogs, cats, and similar small animals usually maintained as household pets. And similar small domestic animals, including rabbits and poultry. That's what you can have as of right. So with the previous applicant, because we were only talking about the poultry. As of right, they could have had 4 chickens and they wouldn't have had to come to this board. So horses or ponies. Under the code automatically require special permit approval.
Okay,
And then because they're seeking more than 4 chickens. And because the property is more than 2 acres, it implicates the requirements of the special permit for the chickens as well.
if
And
they're
and they have,
both-
and they have a rooster.
Yes,
Okay.
but under the code, it's more broadly described as just poultry. And
Right.
then the distinction between the rooster comes into play in your analysis of the special permit criteria in determining whether this is consistent with the health, safety, and welfare of the public.
Just so I'm, point of information
Yeah.
is, I do understand that 1 horse was considered as part of the animal. I think I read that somewhere. I can find it.
It's
again.
1 per acre. In the special permit criteria, it says, provided that the number there's under. Make sure I'm not missing it.
I-
Dogs, cats, and similar small animals usually maintained as household pets within the principal dwelling. And rabbits, poultry, and similar small domestic animals occasionally maintained as pets, but usually maintained outside of the residence as farm animals. And then there are provisions as to how old they have to be. And then on 2 acres or more by special permit issued by the zoning board of appeals, then you can have more than 4 poultry. And provided that the number thereof shall not exceed 1 per acre in any combination thereof, and I think that's what you're referring to,
Yes,
Tom,
I am.
where it says 1 horse, 1 cow. So that's not an issue because given the size of their property and you're only proposing 2, they don't exceed that 1 per
Okay,
acre.
Okay, good. All right,
But yes, both, given what the applicant is proposing, both fall within the special permit jurisdiction.
Okay.
Anybody?
Yeah, I had a couple of.
yes, please.
So on the environmental assessment form, it doesn't indicate total acreage to be disturbed, but when I look at the site plan and do a rough calculation, it exceeds 1 acre. And there've been a number of comments from neighbors about how stormwater management is being done on the site. And 1 acre is usually a trigger point for New York State DEC, requiring some form of stormwater management plan as well. So I want to know how that's being taken into account. And then the site plan also does not really show any sort of topography. So it's hard to understand what actually will take place, you know, other than the footprint of this, whether trees need to be removed, whether the site needs to be regraded. And although the site is, you know, 9 acres, it's pretty much up against the, you know, fairly close to the property line in this kind of long, narrow strip. So I have significant concerns about the scale of it, you know, kind of relative to the area of the site it's going into, and not relative to the 9 acres, but really the more localized conditions of what's happening. So I think there needs to be a lot more information in regards to the barn, what's happening for stormwater management, what's happening to the topography there, what's happening in terms of trees being removed potentially to make this corral area. So there's just a lot of unanswered questions.
I think what we're gonna try to do, is that, you know, prior to leaving this evening, since there are a lot of questions that still have to be answered, we'll give you a list to work on, and come back in the future with regards to what we're gonna be asking for. But, you know, before we get to that, I wanted to give the audience and anybody on the Zoom meeting, the opportunity to render, you know, their opinions. And again, we received 1, 2, 3, 4, pieces of correspondence, all not in favor of this for numerous reasons. And like I said before, they were well written. But I do have to say that I think the original plan for the chicken coop and the corral, definitely with a majority of these comments from the audience and the neighbors, every right to be concerned of where they were gonna put it. Where it is right now, in probably the 5 acres, the back of their home, which is all wooded, and it's basically a gully. And there's, nothing but hundreds of trees back there that would have to be cut down. But in that circumference of the 5 acres, that sits alone, and it's nowhere near someone's home along this road as compared to where they were putting in the posts before. So that being said, I will open it up at one at a time, giving me your name and address, and like I said, we have everything in writing from everyone, and you can give the executive committee here a little brief explanation of what your concerns still are or maybe. So one at a time. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, we'll have it.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
your name and address.
Shanti Vargas, Philip Garthy, 13 Savannah Road.
And you did a beautiful job, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I just have, I think, three questions. 2 is probably more clarification of what has been said here. So this is their site plan that they submitted along with their application. And I don't know if you can all see it, but I highlighted the area where they were putting up the posts. So I just want to clarify, this is no longer happening, it's moving here.
Right. Completely.
Okay,
I walked the whole site, I had the same questions. And that's why I took, all of your correspondence very seriously, and that's why I spent a lot of time there. I saw the posts. And like I said previously, is that, every one of your concerns and the neighbors' concerns, were real legitimate if that's where they were gonna be putting this site. When I walked with the owner and I spent time with him, is that this is out in the woods. It's nowhere near anybody's houses, and it's in a gully. I mean,
Right.
it's basically in a gully back there.
right, and I'm totally satisfied with that, which
Right.
was, my sort of recommendation
Yep.
in my letter. It wasn't to not let them. have
No,
animals,
no, it was well
for me to
received,
be
well
approved.
received.
But
I have a
also
job for
just,
you on the town board.
Thank you. So I think from the site plan, we also just need to make sure the setbacks are being followed, the minimum setbacks that are in the town
Yeah,
code.
where they intend to put it, if it's approved. There's no setbacks whatsoever because it's a huge piece of property that's in the gully. And if it's taken 4 to 5 acres out of it, with his, and I saw where his line was, you don't have to worry about any setbacks, but there's nothing there.
Okay, the second is, I guess, in their planning to put a corral here, they completely removed all of the screening that used to be there, so there is zero privacy between the properties. So I know you mentioned that there be
Well, yeah.
trees being lined, like replanted, but I wasn't sure where along the property line, like what types of trees. These cannot be infant trees because it'll take too long to grow, so they will have to be mature sized trees.
This
Put back.
is out of our purview here. This is with the building department and the judges that, will make decisions on this. I understand completely what you're saying, but
So what has to happen there? Do I
you,
have?
you'll have to talk to the building inspector and, he issued, violations and fines that have to go to court. I do not know what the judges will or will not say. They, with all due respect to the judges, is that, they just may give them $150 fine and go with God, or they may say $150 fine and replace every tree, 6-foot abrevieties or whatever. And we do have, people on the board, okay, that are very concerned when it comes to, planting of trees and bushes and everything else, and that's something that they would have to get involved in, and that's something with your expertise, is that you could bring it to their attention.
Yeah, I only
Is
four
that,
pictures of what it looks
Yeah,
like.
no, and I think, just like you're here, talking to us and writing to us and explaining your feelings, is that the same thing would have to be done for the screening that they took down, for the erosion that may have taken place. I don't know what he took down. I don't know the type of trees. I don't know if they were bushes. I don't know if they were
There were combinations.
50-foot high.
There were
Okay,
combinations.
again, out of my view, I can't do
Understood.
anything that the judge may or may not do.
But can I just be clear, that's in relation to the trees that were removed. However, now you're being asked to approve a corral to house these animals in that location. So I think in your special permit capacity, you could certainly take into consideration the screening and the privacy that is going to be afforded to neighboring properties.
I understand that, but where the location is,
Mhm.
and that's why, you really have to see it, is that if they go into the gully per the plan, and it's a gully, I mean, it's down in the hole basically with nothing but, mini mountains on the side that you really have to walk down, is that you don't need any privacy down here because it doesn't face anything but dirt, mounds, half mountains of dirt. So if with regards to where it was gonna be, or what he took down on the property lines, that's a different subject matter completely.
And that goes to what David said earlier about the topography and
Right.
like the plans
Well,
not
that's-
reflecting
yeah.
what that shows.
Depending on how this, I will recommend to the board what I consider to be a fair and equitable homework project for the applicant, that will try to take that all into consideration. Go ahead.
My third and final concern, so we have a plan for the corral and the chicken coop.
We're gonna be
but,
asking for that, we have nothing.
Right, but you brought up the point earlier that they, up until today, they are free roaming, and they are free roaming, the chickens as well as the horses.
Horses, they're ponies,
The ponies,
they're not full-grown horses.
no, but
Yeah.
they're large enough.
Yeah.
I know, because they've been on my property. But there's also like stakes along the property to kind of allow for the horses to be in other locations. So I'm just wondering what sort of is the
Well,
guidelines or the recommendations or the requirements for these animals
that'll
to be
part-
where
yeah.
they are supposed to be
Part
housed and not
of-
free roaming.
Part of my recommendations this evening will be, since they are in violation and they have the animals there, I don't want to be a Simon Legree and say, get rid of them until decisions are made. But, you know, there's going to be recommendations of what they're going to have to do before the next meeting.
Right, because again,
Right.
my concern is
Yep.
they may have moved the corral, but the horses are still
Yep.
close enough to my property where they're eating, they're shitting,
Yep.
they're doing all of that nice fun stuff right behind my pool house.
Yep.
And then I also just want to verify, like, we've seen other animals on the farm besides horses and chickens. Peacocks, goats, we've heard rumors of a pig, I don't know. But these should also be verified whether or not they exist on the property. If there's any other plans to bring other animals to the property. It just needs to be fully transparent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll ask the applicant, besides the 2 ponies and the chickens that you currently have and the rooster, do you intend to bring any other animal on the site?
No,
No.
And you don't currently have any of those animals?
in the past there was a goat, but, not anymore.
So the only thing you have for the record are the chickens, the rooster, and the 2 ponies.
No, there's the peacock, but it's not staying much longer.
2 peacocks?
It's just one now.
What happened to the goat?
The goat's not there anymore. It's, not to sound rude, but it's in the farm upstate.
You have to understand that, you know, I know this is close to 10 acres, but this is a residential piece of property. This is not a farm. Not a farm.
Yes.
This is a residential piece of property with houses on it and 9 acres of property. There is no way, shape, or form this can be considered a farm. Well, you have to understand that. That's why you're here. If it was a farm and it was upstate, 2 hours from that here, that's great. But this is a residential piece of property. Okay? May I have the next person that wants to, yes, sir.
Hi, Richard Schlesinger, 32 Savannah. I
Right,
sent
sir.
in a letter. You're talking from the site plan. There was an outline of the corral with nothing else, and it looked like it was right behind our house. You mentioned that it's in a gully, but if you look, that gully down slopes into our backyard. And every time it rains heavy, we flood. The gully floods, it goes into our backyard. And when we had very heavy rain, such as a couple hurricanes, the entire backyard flooded and it went into the garage and into the lower level of the house. The septic system is, the leach field is in the backyard too. So the environmental
Can you tell
assessment,
us where your property is?
it's right behind to the 32,
Okay, I mean, I walked the site
right?
He's where?
and
You saw the gully that I'm
Oh,
talking about?
okay, you're.
the thing is, where they intend, when you take a look at here. Okay, here is, you want to come over?
Yeah, sure.
This is it.
I got it.
Wait,
Yeah.
face up,
Yeah,
okay?
we're here.
Yeah,
So
this here, I mean, this isn't a gully.
but this feeds right into our backyard.
This is,
Yeah.
that true, but that is a long way to go. But that'd be part of any type of requirement.
Right.
As far as stormwater.
Yeah, because this is really it all goes downhill
Yeah,
into here, right?
yes, it
And-
does, because there's other stuff that's back here also.
And, you know, I make
Yeah.
a point that
Yeah.
the fact that the environmental assessment statement said that there's no problem with rain discharge is completely false. That whole statement is, showed the person who did it had no conception of what the.
But like my other board member said, when it comes to, you know, environmental issues like this, if you get over an acre, and this is probably 4 to 5
Right.
acres, I think there's gonna be other,
Yeah,
organizations that are gonna have to be.
yeah, I was trying to
involved
find
in
out
this.
that, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
And the intent, with all due respect, the intent of the residents was a farm. They had a sign outside that said Finca Furman Farm. The intent was to make a farm, and that's what it is. And you can't have a farm in a residential area where folks moved into this, especially on Tavano Road, which are these mid-century moderns, where the environment becomes part of the house. So this is really a detriment to the general welfare of the 4 houses or so that are there. And health and welfare, as was brought up with the chicken coop, there are significant health and environmental impact issues that have never been addressed, and it's not clear that the folks understand that they have to be addressed or how they will be addressed, not asking folks for advice. They have to come up with their own plans. This is not a minor issue.
Right,
Thank you.
that's why we're here. Thank you.
Can I just say something really quickly, Sal? Wendy Masterman, 10 Morningside Court, Austining. The gully is all wetlands. I looked at a wetland map today, where he's talking about a gully, that's all the wetlands. I don't think that there's any way that they're gonna be permitted to put anything in the
They'll
wetland.
probably have a building inspector.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Arthur Zeidman. I live at number 30 Tavano Road, so next to the Schlesingers.
Say that again, please. I'm just trying to get where you are. That's all.
Number 30.
Okay.
So a few points that I'd just like to bring up. One, as far as the new location in this gully, in addition to the fact that that gully does drain down to our number 32.
Right.
Right now, from my living room window, I can look into that gully and I see at this moment, and I can hear a bulldozer, a semi truck and a box truck.
Which I saw.
So, yeah, so I would encourage you to also walk the adjoining properties to see how that impacts what we see, hear, smell, etc. In addition, I do wonder if the applicants aren't underestimating the number of animals. As my neighbor has said, over the past 6 months, we have seen and heard goats, peacocks, dogs, a pig. We hear a rooster every morning at 6 a.m. All these are roaming free. Beyond the animals, there appears to be some kind of a dormitory. Maybe that's the horse barn, but it seems like maybe people are also living there. Is there a sanitation plan beyond septic for the main house? How's that being dealt with? Is that permitted residential space?
Well, understand something is that this application is for a special permit for animals. My understanding from the building inspector who I've talked to numerous times is that, issued the violations for the trees, it's a court appearance. The applicant does have building permits for certain other areas of that piece of property, which I do not follow up on. That is his position to do. So I have no problem in you meeting with him or calling and bringing to his attention what you think is going on and whether or not there is a building permit for, anything that's going on there that shouldn't. But he does have some
Got it.
building permits for working on the homes that are there.
Thanks. I will stick to the animals. So again, but over the past 6 months or so, we have experienced burning of debris, massive fires. Who knows what kind of materials were being burned in that time, animals running free, a disregard for the neighbors, kind of a general, what appears to be a flouting of the rules. So how can we be confident that this applicant will be responsible in their caretaking of the animals and the environment that will be impacted? And particularly the stormwater impact and the potential for it to run into Sing Sing Kill.
We'll try to address each and every one of those items.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bill Farrell, 59 Summerstown. And question for you, this is just residential and would be an exception. Is that right? That property can't be used for anything else?
No, it's a residential piece of property.
Okay.
That has over 9.68 acres. And they're in front of us for a special permit for animals.
Okay, so
So it's residential. If they wanted to do something other than residential, they would have to go to the building inspector and put an application in for planning to see if they wanted to go build and subdivide it. And,
Yeah, so it's not commercial,
no,
because as the neighbor pointed out, there was a large commercial type sign there. I think of Hermine Farm. And I was also, maybe not pertinent tonight, but if there's gonna be a farm, that it not be used as an event space, because there was an event there last year where Summerstown Road was closed for about 4 or 5 hours by the police, with hundreds of people walking, from Brookside as far down, so.
well, was that on their piece of property they were going, or was this just because of the?
No, I was told by the officer that it was their property, so I think
So,
they're trying to be nice, they put up a nice snowman, but invited people to stop on the road and take pictures, just don't damage it, and it's one thing if it's an Indian village, but 133's got enough problems, and I think, I'm just gonna ask you to be more considerate of the neighbors. Don't use it as an event space. Don't use it as a commercial space. And don't ask people to stop on the road to take pictures of the snowman. I'm sure it's not done with any
Malicious.
The final thing I would say is, my wife's from Latin America, I go there a lot, 4 o'clock in the morning, you wake up, whether you want to or not, because everybody's got a rooster. And, it may not bother people on this board that there's a rooster there, but if you're in the neighborhood, there's nothing you can do.
Thank you.
if I could just, for a point of clarification, the town code does provide that you can get a special event permit. If you want to have an event on your private property, it's not supposed to be an everyday thing. But if you're having, if you want to have a wedding on your property or something like that, I cannot say, I'm hearing about this for the first time. I cannot say a permit was gotten under those circumstances. But the fact that the police seem to be aware of it makes me think that maybe that happened. But, if you want to have an event on your property every once in a while, it's your own private property, so you're allowed to do that. It shouldn't be an everyday thing. It should not be in a commercial use. But I just want to make sure that you're all aware that the code does allow for those types of circumstances. And the reason for that is so that the town knows what's happening when they get those types of calls, when they know when they need to provide for extra traffic measures or.
For the record, these appear to be hundreds of unsupervised adolescents.
Okay,
So-
I'm.
And the police are aware that there were about 6 police cars that had the road from Summerstown Road, which is about 400 meters from that property, closed because it was like Woodstock.
Okay, again, I'm hearing about it for the first time. I just wanted to make you aware of what the code does allow.
I just think what everyone's trying to say is that there's a history here of, whether it's disregard or ill intent or whatever it is, it just doesn't matter. There's just a history of things being done inappropriately, without permits, without knowledge, without anything. And it's just do and ask for forgiveness later. And that is just not going to fly moving forward. It shouldn't be able to go on, be allowed. They want animals, they need to have a solid plan in place. Manure management, storm drainage, rain runoff, everything. And I mean detail. Like, this isn't a every week thing. This is a daily, a weekly, a seasonal, like a full plan and knowledge needs to be placed. They can't be taught along the way. That's not okay. So I think that's just what we're trying to say, is that there's just a history where we just cannot trust that things are going to be done appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, just a point of information. I want to be clear that we're a variance board for what we have in front of us.
Right.
Agreed.
None of the issues you are bringing up have to be brought up in very different menus than what we're doing. But I appreciate it. We've heard it very clearly. There's an issue here and it's a lot about, education and communication and it's begun. And I think it's a good thing.
I just think that, look, you guys have, you have the legal authority, right? Like if there are health issues, environmental issues, property value issues, all of these things fall within your purview to say no, right? Like these things are things that you must take into consideration to protect the resident of Tabano Road and other neighboring streets that are being affected by what they're doing and the lack of knowledge and things that they're not doing. And it's great that they want to say, sorry, we'll improve. But for people like me, I live with cystic fibrosis. I get a bacteria in my lungs. It doesn't go away. It doesn't leave. I have to live with antibiotics. So it's not just, hey, oops, sorry. This is serious life effects for people. And there are other people on Tabano Road that have lung conditions, making out cystic fibrosis, but they also have lung conditions, right? Runoff, manure, all of this stuff is in the air, the rain, this stuff can travel for miles. So if
Okay.
things are not in place properly, we bear the repercussions, not them, we do.
Okay, thank you. Next. Anybody else have anything else to say? Yes, ma'am, please come here. Give us your name and address.
Jody Amstel, 30 Tabano, Arthur's wife, and I sent a letter in as well.
Yes.
And just to build upon what Shanti was saying, I think the concern about the pattern of behavior that we've seen is that if there is a plan that's given to you about how the animals will be maintained, we don't have a lot of confidence that such a plan will be followed going forward. And I believe the gentleman spoke about, we made this investment in this property and we're going to continue to invest, just as we've all invested a lot in our properties. And it is a very special community on Tabano Road where you buy to maintain the peacefulness of the design of that neighborhood that was intended from the beginning. And now I sit in my backyard and I look at, stationary trucks that don't appear to have a purpose. And the pattern of behavior is also a concern where there's a fire, they're told you can't do this, and then they do it again. And so that, I think, is relevant to your consideration, even if that might be a building department issue in terms of how construction debris is dealt with. But in terms of behavior of the applicant and what we can expect going forward, I think is a very relevant consideration. And that's all I have to add tonight.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry, guys. So let's just say leading forward, they get the special permit, there's some sort of plan in place. What is our recourse? What do we do if they are not following that plan? And who's monitoring it? Who's enforcing it? Like,
We would have to talk all that through. We're not anywhere near that point.
Not anywhere near it.
okay.
So nothing's, I mean, I think what, sorry, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think what you've heard is nothing's happening tonight. And there was talk about submitting reports potentially. We could talk to the building department about doing periodic inspections, but the board's not even at the point where they're ready to act or grant anything. So
I get it.
if that would all have to be fleshed out. But as the chairman and the board members have been saying, they're hearing what you're saying.
I
So we
think
would-
it's-
And yes, no,
I
and I
think it's
appreciate
very,
it.
I think it's very important, and I've been on this board for over 40 years. And complaints like I'm listening to this evening, I've heard for any other application in front of me. And part of the problem is that, yes, I want to know about those when an application comes in front of me, but it's up to the neighbors to call the police department and the building department so that it's registered, just as the trees were. So, when we saw the tree violation, I made a decision that no decision would be made this evening, besides everything else that has to be adhered to by them, as far as I am concerned. But the more the building department, and I hate to put more work on the shoulder, but, yeah, if somebody is burning, you have to call somebody. So that, yeah, and last week I called, he was out to that property numerous times. It wasn't just once, it wasn't just twice, so all that information came back to me as a chairperson, and I sent it on to each one of the board members. If I do not have that information, it's like he's the Virgin Mary. And I always say knowledge is power, so the more information I have with regards to infractions, it does show the character of what we're dealing with and how we're going to move forward in making decisions okay, making sure if something is granted here with a special permit, and a special permit can be withdrawn, okay, if there are infractions, and that you're not getting it back. So rest assured that if there's something going on that shouldn't be, you call the police or the building department. I mean, I can't believe that the police closed down the road and let whatever was going on without a permit. Yeah. Town attorney doesn't know anything about it.
They closed it out of an emergency situation. not
I
because-
fully understand, but as my board member said, we are here, special permit for animals, nothing else. Everybody has their own jurisdictions with regards to responsibilities. And that's the police department, and that's the building department, and the planning department. Okay? Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a question.
Please come up and introduce yourself.
Janet Brand, I live on 6 Barnes Road around the corner. I'm also a real estate broker, okay? I had a client that could not buy in the town of Ossining because their dream was to have goats. And in the town of Ossining, they couldn't have goats. They weren't buying a 10-acre parcel, so they ended up buying all the way out in the town of Newcastle, they had 2 goats, and they had over 10 acres, and that is, every town has different rules.
Yes.
How many acres are you allowed in Ossining for goats? Because I know it can't be, we're gonna buy one property, and they had to buy another property outside, a little bit further out in Newcastle, because they wanted those goats. It was 10 acres.
Goats aren't referenced in the code.
Oh. But they could, for some reason, they knew they could not have goats.
Because they're not referenced in the code.
Oh, so that means you're not allowed to have goats in the town
If
of
it's
Ossining.
not enumerated,
Oh, okay, so that's clear. So the goats that
I'm glad they moved someplace else.
they still, no, their kids went to the Ossining schools with my kids. But they had their goats. I don't even know if they still have them, but they did want those goats. The question is that, at some point, and I think what everybody's worried about is, we've seen goats, we've seen the Finca Farm sign that just came down all of a sudden. It was there since they bought it, now it's down. So it's like, because this meeting was gonna happen, the farm sign is down. We kind of all feel like we're being played, okay? And I live around the corner. I can complain that I can hear the Campfire Gun Club. Once in a while I hear it. You live with it, but you can't move from a village where you're not allowed to, the village of Ossining does not allow any chickens.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. They don't. I will tell you, they don't. Check the code. It is considered livestock.
it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant, because I own a property in the village and my neighbor with all their chickens, building department came and told them they had to go. They're not allowed in the village. You can speak to Mr. Agostinelli about it.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, the point is that if there are goats, if there's peacocks, those are all, peacocks are considered animals too?
I would say they're poultry.
Okay, so if you have it, and then when they know you're coming, these things, if they have a place to put the goats upstate, maybe they can to kind of get along with the people that are being impacted, because there are always rules in the village of Ossining that we all had to comply with. I own in the village and I own in the town of Newcastle, and everything that I have to do, we know that we're supposed to apply for things. So, you have to listen to those rules.
They're learning.
Well,
Thank you.
but hopefully not at everybody else's expense.
Now, one question.
Yes, please. again,
This could be,
introduce
this could be a
yourself.
very long drawn out thing. You're gonna give them things to do and blah, blah, blah. Why can't they be asked to remove the animals? They're in violation. Why can't those animals be removed?
If they have the place upstate, why not?
I mean, really, it just seems to me, I mean, I built in Ossining, okay, in the town of Ossining, and I followed every single rule, because that's me. If I didn't, I was gonna be impacted. Why are they not being asked to remove these animals?
Applying to the zoning board states the violation for zoning infraction. But I don't disagree that they should be, if the board is inclined on asking the applicant for additional information, they should be kept on a very tight timeframe.
At one point, if the applicants wanted a farm, why didn't they buy in a place that's zoned for farm?
Well, and you know, Mark Seiden was only granted 4, he can only have 4 chickens. They already have 12, and they're in violation, and he wouldn't let him have his 15. So maybe what works for one person should work for them, and maybe if they do have a place to bring their chickens, they can bring them someplace else until this is all resolved.
And the rooster.
And the rooster.
The peacock was, kept my wife up all night last night.
So I think we've gotten a little bit away from the,
Anybody
if you
else
want to
have
come up
anything
and
to say
speak
with
and
regard to the
address the board.
I'm sorry if I made an error in speaking.
I'm online. Can I make a comment, please? Jennifer Smith Cootee, my husband Pascal and I own 94, which is directly next door. Currently their chickens are right on the property line, and taking down of all the trees has completely impacted the property from the perspective of what we would hope to be able to do with it. Everything is visible, all of the sounds, all of the smells, everything is right there on the property line. Where it appears the corral is going to be, fully 100% in view from the property, which I absolutely do not agree. It's not in a private 4 acres off to the side. It is 100% right smack dab next to the property that we bought. And I believe I understand from what was submitted on the survey that there's only a 20-foot distance between the corral and the property line. I don't know if I'm 100% correct in that. And I will say, quite honestly, I did not have a comfortable conversation with the applicant today. I went over there to ask her if they would remove some garbage, and she told me that she was going to pick up the garbage and put it next to my house. So
Who said that?
the applicant said that to me today. So I tend to agree with what everyone's saying, is that this is not as pleasant of a situation as it's being made out to be. And I haven't been there that long, not as long as everybody else, but we've witnessed behavior and have tried to be a good neighbor and ask questions very nicely about certain things, and have either been ignored or told basically to mind our own business. So I just wanted people to know that that was the interaction. It's very upsetting because I thought we were going to try to do something with that property, and I'm not sure it's possible. The trees are a huge issue, but I know that's not the point of this. But everything is wide open from our property to their property now, because they have removed every barrier that would be between the 2 properties.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add that. And I did submit a letter. I don't know if it was received. I sent it to Sandra.
Yes, we did. We received it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom?
No, somebody in the room though.
Anybody else?
Howard Fleischer. 22 Savannah Road. I've been asked to read a letter that was written by Kate and Dan Chess. I believe you have that letter in possession. I'm sorry?
In the record?
Yeah, it's in the record, and just for the rest of the public, I think that it can be read, if you will allow me to do this, it will just be a minute.
Sure.
But I think it goes right to the salient points, and it's very well written. And so, sadly, I didn't bring my reading glasses, but please bear with me. Okay. We have resided at 19 Tavano Road for 29 years. Our property borders 90 Somerstown Road. My husband and I have a BS degrees in geology, and my husband earned an MS in environmental science. In addition, my husband is a licensed professional engineer in environmental engineering. For his master's thesis, he studied the distribution of bacteria, including E. coli, in surface and subsurface waterways. He has a long history of working in construction and in wastewater management. We have a number of questions regarding the application. Does the applicant have the requisite building permit and site plan approval? Does the applicant have the New York State Stormwater Discharge Permit, abbreviated as SBDES, required for a barn with 1 acre of combined land disturbance? Does the applicant have or will submit a stormwater pollution prevention plan required for a barn with 1 acre of land disturbance? The bare ground of an active corral or paddock would have different surface flow coefficient. Soils in these heavily used areas tend to be compacted. Does the applicant have a solid waste disposal plan for construction debris, including vegetation debris? Does the applicant have a landscaping plan? Corrals require a minimum setback provide mitigation for dust and runoff. Some land disturbance has already occurred. Does the applicant have a waste disposal plan for the livestock waste animal, bedding, materials, urine, manure, etc., for the barn and for the animal exercise areas? Does the applicant for a flock of chickens and 2 horses, in addition to the existing animals, or is it for approval for 24 chickens and 4 horses going forward? I know this has been answered in my just reading. Does the applicant have experience with bacterial or viral contagion mitigation for diseases such as Eastern equine encephalitis or bird flu? Background for 90 Somerstown and Tavano Road stormwater. In the response to number 17A on the application, it says that the runoff will not impact neighboring properties. The property is located at the highest topographic point, and water always flows downhill. The property is already known to contribute to flooding downhill during rainstorms, directly impacting number 19, which is their house, and number 13. Does the applicant propose bioengineering solutions utilizing plants or natural solutions to reduce pollutants? The excess water then flows down gradient, impacting number 17, 15, and 5. In addition, water flows down gradient towards Route 133, causing stormwater flow on those properties. This impact needs to be further investigated. The Robbinswood neighborhood, Tavano Road, was constructed so that the stormwater collection in the wetlands behind number 22 and 20, 22 is my home, and or in the retention pond behind number 5. The existing storm drains on Somerstown would therefore contaminate both the wetland and the pond, in addition to the properties mentioned above. There is no piped stormwater drainage for the recipients, for the applicant's property, and any manure runoff will contaminate backyard play areas from number 32 to number 5. There are a number of children in this neighborhood. In the past 16 months, the owners of 90 have performed, this is, again, I'm not looking to repeat what we already might know, but construction on the main house, construction to the pool house, construction to the garage, performing ground clearing, removing trees and shrubs while destroying root structures, increasing erosion potential. Installed an unsightly metal fence on the boundaries with number 19 and number 32. Workers moved the stone wall to ensure it was on the line. Survey markers and pins may have been disturbed. Begun construction of the corral, and the construction is close to the property lines of number 13, 19, and 32. Sorry. There does not appear to be any buffer zone to the property line. How much additional impervious surface has been added or proposed to be added? The property has a septic system approved for a 4-bedroom house, and given the above mentioned expansions, we have concerns about whether the system is undersized. An undersized system could overwhelm the absorption field, causing a surface blowout, contributing to bacterial contamination of stormwater runoff. How many living spaces are there? Please note that according to the building department, there are no permit applications or permits on file for any of this work. During work, a large fire caused a lot of smoke to envelope 3 neighboring houses for several hours. How are they managing construction debris? Is any of the material hazardous, such as lead paint or asbestos? Do they have invoices for carting away the materials? The use of heavy equipment created a lot of dust as earth was cleared over a large section of land and the top of the property. Most of the trees, shrubs, and other vegetation were removed in the clearing process, leaving no vegetation barrier between properties. Removing vegetation increases the risk of flooding downhill because there's less capacity to infiltration. The soil on these properties is derived from the Manhattan schist. It is a very thin and has low groundwater infiltration. Bedrock outdrops can be observed on several occasions along Tabana Road. Increasing the area of impervious surfaces, i.e. new building and compacted ground, will increase surface water flow even more. Building a barn and a corral at the top of the hill will have significant stormwater impact and will be detrimental to the surrounding properties given the topography of the area. Health impacts. Housing and grazing farm animals on a residential lot would mean that manure and other contaminated materials would collect. This would increase the bacteria load in stormwater. Stormwater would bring manure contamination from the subject property onto the neighboring properties. Onto the neighboring properties.
Onto Renova Road.
You probably have a better way to me. I'm sorry. On Savannah Road. Wherever the barn and corral are constructed, all of the potential environmental impacts need to be thoroughly identified. Thank you, Catherine and Daniel Chess.
Thank you.
And from Howard Fleischer.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, I would,
No, Sal. No one on Zoom.
nobody on Zoom, thank you. I'd like to take a motion to close the public. I want to have an executive. I want to have a recess. If I can.
Do you want to go into executive
Yes.
session for advice of counsel? And then potentially come back out and?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we need a motion and a second to go into executive session for.
I
advice of
move to
counsel.
go into executive session.
No.
Oh, everyone vote, please.
Yes, yes,
Aye.
yes. Okay, so we go to the next. We'll take an intermission for 5 minutes.
It's only different. Or me.
Because we have, this is.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
My neighbor.
Good, I just want to say, we closed this for that time period.
And I couldn't see on the bench.
We just have a motion by the full board to come out of executive session.
Motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing
Public hearing
Concluded?
is still open.
is still open. Okay,
So we
I'll
should-
have to
Move we
take a
close the
move a
public
motion
hearing.
to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay,
Aye. All in favor?
Yes. All in favor, yes.
Yes, aye.
Aye.
so second. Under the current application to legalize the ponies, the chickens, the roosters, the peacocks, under the special permit that was submitted to us. I'd like to get a vote on a yes to permit it or a no, not to permit it. So let's go with anybody in favor of granting the special permit for this applicant and the application in front of us now.
No.
No.
No,
No. With regards to the special permit, and saying no to each and every part of it, with regards to every animal that's on that site that has to be removed within a reasonable period of time of, say, 2 weeks. I'd like to take a vote to make that part of this denial.
Move we so do.
Agreed.
Yes.
yes.
Yes, sorry. So let the record show that it's unanimous that the special permit is not granted, that the animals have to be removed within a 2-week period of time. And that, this decision is basically based upon the powers that the zoning board of appeals have on the special permits, that they have to take into consideration the public health, safety, and welfare, and the comfort and convenience of the public in general in and around the neighborhood, besides all of the environmental issues, okay, that really, if we granted this application, would cause in and around that neighborhood in the town of Austining. That being said, this hearing is finished. Okay?
Thank you.
Any questions? You have to talk to the building inspector and he'll guide you along on what you have to do. And I'm not gonna have a chicken sandwich in a long time. Oh, look, the eggs are looking really good.